Based on our total water supply that we serve to our customers, we pumped about 5,600 acre-foot of groundwater last year. Of that amount, we returned about 2,880 acre-feet as reclaimed water. We have to go through some mechanisms to get that water back in the ground, but we recharge a significant amount of it. However, because of the conditions, mostly natural conditions related to our existing recharge facilities, we were not able to gain credit for almost 860 acre-feet. For people that want that in gallons, that's 280 million gallons of water that we're not gaining credit for recharging. Now, it mostly goes in the ground, but we don't get any credit for it. I tend to show this slide. You've all seen it before, but for anybody in the public, this is basically what we're talking about is a slice of the aquifer. We have the blue area is our saturated zone. The brown area up there is our vadose zone. It's unsaturated. There's pore space between the soils and rocks there. That's where we put our recharged water or reclaimed water. Our facilities looks a little bit like this. We'll be talking some in the future about what cones of depression look like when we pump from wells. Creates a kind of a little donut hole in the aquifer. It fills back in as soon as you stop pumping. But then we create a groundwater mound situation in another location when we build these recharge facilities. So right now we have basically 2 surface recharge facilities, and they have to get through a layer of fine grained material, basically the Prescott Valley clay. Anybody who's been here long enough to remember Prescott Valley before the age of paved roads will remember monsoon season and those clay-based roads.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
So our 2 existing facilities are near capacity. We have the North Plains recharge basins that you can see off the edge of Fane Road as you're heading south towards Phoenix. They'd be off on your right. And then our in-channel berms that you pass over when you fly over the bridge on the Elwha Freer River. But I think it's significant to note in those locations, groundwater levels are only 15 or 30 or so feet deep. So we've done a good job in getting water into the ground and raising those groundwater levels, but it has caused issues that we don't have enough capacity to get everything in the ground anymore. So what we propose to do with this contract is with Southwest Groundwater, and by the way, we have Jim Holt from Southwest Groundwater in the audience to address any questions that you may have, is take advantage of some of the current infrastructure we have in place at Mountain Valley Park. We had some close to 20 years ago tried an injection well at Mountain Valley Park. So we have an infrastructure in place, piping in place, but that well did not work because it was not a groundwater injection well, it was a vadose zone well. So what happened is it was in an unsaturated area, and as soon as it started plugging up, you couldn't clean it by back pumping or surging that well, because you do get clogging, you get some bacteria, some biomass fouling, that sort of thing, and you have to pump it back. But if you drilled it deeper and go all the way to the aquifer, you have the ability to clean it. And so those wells have a history of success throughout the state, and we believe it's a good approach for us here. What it allows us to do is, by that diagram, it allows us to get the water past that clay layer and into the aquifer. So that's kind of the idea, that is the idea behind this injection well. So it's a pretty important to us because, you know, the reclaimed water is how growth will get water in the future. So as we've had the stage 2 conservation ordinance went out last week, we started seeing, you know, a lot of concerns from people, members of the public. Why is there growth? Why are you asking me to conserve water? Are we running out of water in our aquifer? And the answer is this had nothing to do with the water supply available in our aquifer. We manage the aquifer through a variety of programs that are held by the state of Arizona. I think it's significant that there have been no new groundwater allocations for subdivision growth since 1999. That's by state law. So when people see growth and new houses growing up, like on Granville along Glassford Hill Road, in my perspective, that's not new growth, because those groundwater allocations were made 20 years ago. So it's just deferred growth, if you will. So our planning program is, to look at these really long-term mechanisms for supplying water. The town council, you guys, you well know that you are not given the authority to make groundwater allocation decisions for new growth. That's reserved by the state. The Department of Water Resources and laws that are on the books make those decisions. You make the decisions about where the growth occurs and how it looks, but not the water resource allocations. So as it stands now, all of the groundwater is essentially reserved for the pre-1999 lots. As new lots go forward, and we see, new subdivisions that were not in place prior to 1999, like Jasper, so they'll depend in large part on reclaimed water and water that we get into the ground and accumulate credits on. So the significance of that is that growth does not impact existing water users, existing water supplies. So to address the question that came forward, are we running out of groundwater? And I'll submit some statistics. These are not my numbers. I did not make these up. These came from the Arizona Department of Water Resources. We have an aquifer that is about 2 to 4 blocks away from where I'm standing right now. It's about 2.5 times the size of Lake Pleasant. Contains 950 billion gallons of water. We're currently using about 2/1000 of that water supply per year. Water levels are declining, but there's a significant amount of what we call saturated interval. And we're not pumping any more water than we did back in 1960s. Back in the 1960s, this area pumped groundwater for agricultural use. That agricultural use has been extinguished through a variety of our groundwater management codes and is now being applied towards growth and houses. So, but we don't use any more than we used to. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there, that we're not overusing our water supplies any more than we used to. Again, just to kind of conclude on planning, one of the comments I kind of heard was, well, it's been dry for so long, how come we're building houses? Well, we know we're in a dry state. It's not been, it's not new news to anybody who's been here for a long time. We know it's a dry place. So our water resource planning always considers that we're going to have significant droughts. So in other words, we don't build when it's raining and stop building when it's sunny. We plan for those dry, long periods. We have, as a matter of fact, a 100-year water supply planning horizon. So our homes have to prove that they have a 100-year assured water supply, considering the significant droughts that we get in this state. And, that's basically overseen and regulated by the Arizona Department of Water Resources. They have hydrologists, they have planners, regulators, lawyers, all that sort of stuff. So they give us instructions on what to do.